Okay. Good evening, everybody. We call to order the town board meeting for December 20th, 2023 at roughly 6:30 p.m. As always, we are virtual, remotely accessible. We're streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and our own website, as well as we run a Zoom to the meeting. So folks that can't join us in person are always invited to join us via Zoom. It allows you to make comments and participate in the meeting when it's appropriate. Instructions for that are at the top of each one of our agendas. With that, I will ask Councilor Priestley to lead us in the pledge of allegiance. Oh, Councilor Dent.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we are at the end of 2023 here. This will be our last meeting of the year. We do have a couple of proclamations we put together for some different folks that have served the town in different capacities. Do we have an order we want to go in?
Yes, we do.
Who's up first?
Mr. Joseph Lupia, I'm up first. So read by Deputy Supervisor Sarah Orr. Okay, we'll do that better. Social card organizer. So Joseph Lupia Jr. began his service to the town of Manlius on the zoning board of appeals in 2009, serving on that board for over 4 years. Joe served the town of Manlius planning board by becoming a member in 2012 and has led the board as chairman from 2017 to the present. Joe is known for running meetings that are efficient and fair. Joe is also known for facilitating discussions that are thoughtful, productive, and help the board and the applicants develop projects that have a positive impact on the community. During his service on the planning board, Joe showed a lasting commitment to a higher standard of planning for projects that maintain the characteristics of the town and the integrity of the board. The Manlius Town Board recognizes and thanks Joe Lupia for his expertise and leadership, recognizing the many significant contributions he has made in preserving and improving the quality of life for the citizens of the town of Manlius, and do hereby recognize Joe Lupia for his dedicated service on the planning and zoning boards within the town of Manlius. And I'd like to say personally that I've learned from Joe that he is very empathetic and compassionate with residents who come before the planning board. And I think he is a wonderful person and we're very sorry to see him. Good, that's all.
So Ms. Ann Kelly has demonstrated a lifelong commitment to the citizens of the town of Manlius, having served on the board in the town of Manlius for over 36 years. And first began her service to the citizens of the town of Manlius on the Board of Assessment Review in 1987, serving on that board for the next 35 years, including chairing the board for several of those years. And also served on the Zoning Board of Appeals from 1989 to 1996, including a leadership role as chairperson of that board. And will be most remembered for her role as a planning board member, where she served from 2007 until the present, including serving as a chairperson of the board in 2004. During her service on the planning board, Anne showed a continued commitment to a standard of aesthetics for projects that preserve the character of nearby neighborhoods. So that the town Manlius board recognizes and thanks Ann Kelly for her demonstrated leadership skills in serving as the chairperson on every board to which she has been a member. Be it further resolved, the Manlius Town Board recognizes the many significant contributions Ann Kelly has made in preserving and improving the quality of life for the citizens of the town of Manlius, and do hereby recognize Ann Kelly for her dedicated service on several boards within the town.
Salvador Malone. He served the town of Manlius citizens for over 18 years in different roles throughout the town, including the Zoning Board of Appeals and as town justice. Sal was appointed to the role of zoning board member and chairman in 2005, and he governed the board with a high standard of fairness. Sal has served in the role of town justice since 2008 and is known to be fair, impartial, and treats all those who appear before him with respect and dignity. The Manlius Town Board recognizes the many significant contributions Salvatore Malone has made in protecting and improving the quality of life for the citizens of the town of Manlius, and do hereby recognize Sal for his dedicated service within the town of Manlius.
I'm trying not to cry. So Caitlin is going to present on behalf of the entire town, especially her fellow town board members, a proclamation in honor of Counselor Elaine Denton. This is her last meeting as a counselor.
Thank you, Heather. Such that I'm like gathering myself. Whereas, Councilor Denton's tenure from 2023 may not be celebrated, we recognize her unwavering support for environmental protection and sustainability, attention to detail, talent for legislative research, analysis, and visual communication to make government budgets as participatory as possible. Councilor Denton was a founding member of the Sustainable Manlius Committee. She wrote the grants that provided for new public electric vehicle charging and passed legislation to reduce pesticide use and encourage sustainable practices by residents and business owners. Councilor Denton's founding and leadership of the Public Safety Advisory Committee brought together multiple stakeholders to ensure the emphasis on community engagement in the town's policing. Councilor Denton researched, designed, and rolled out a pilot. Oh, it's doing so well. Don't look at me like that. I'm like seeing her out of the corner of my eye. Here, Councilor Denton researched, designed, and rolled out a pilot of the town's first neighborhood sidewalk program, responding to multiple presentations and requests by community members and giving residents a project playbook for organizing. All the town's public communications benefited from Councilor Denton's significant talent as a designer and visual communicator. From digital branding, it's not the website that's making me cry. From digital branding, templates for sharing important public information, and the town's web redesign. The Manlius Town Board acknowledges her important impact and thanks Elaine Michelle Denton for her public service as a town councilor. And I would just like to add that there is no one so steadfast in her conviction and so tenacious in pursuit of that. So that's all.
Well, I do. Yeah. But I figured I should take it. So it has been an honor to serve as a town of Manlius councilor these past 4 years. I have learned a lot from this experience and will continue to use my voice to advocate for our government to do better at every level. I will be signing up to get my agendas to my email and pay close attention to that town budget. And I will continue to share my thoughts with the town and encourage residents to do the same. Because I know we now have the town board that is responsive to residents' feedback, concerns, and questions. I will continue to build community here in the town of Manlius through the neighborhood sidewalk program, and I look forward to seeing a completed project. Thank you to my fellow board members for their continued support and diligence when making challenging decisions. Thank you to our town staff for sharing your knowledge and your dedication to serving our community. And I wish you guys all the best for the year and so on.
Okay, next up, we have open podium. Open podium is a time for folks, the residents to join us and ask questions, share some comments. And we try to keep it between 3 and 5 minutes per speaker. Try to keep it to about the first 15 minutes of the meeting. But really, it's just an opportunity for folks to come and share something with us. So with that being said, I'd ask Craig Dunzak, your senator first.
I know you missed me. Thank you. A month ago, November 15th, you had Mr. Duffy, Patrick Duffy here. And I had made some comments then that were in the forms of questions, and I had hoped that he might, in his report, respond to them. As he really didn't, I'd asked the board to pursue those questions because I think one of the problems is when people usually interact with him, it's because they have a grievance. And I think the larger process that he uses for his assessments would be instructional, educational, informational for all the town residents. And the particular things that I would point out has to do with the way in which, let's say, gross assessments are made in neighborhoods, which really don't distinguish and discriminate between the kinds of housing stock that might be within that one neighborhood. As an example, the neighborhood I live in, he affirmed was raised by 14.5%, a neighborhood of about 67, 68 houses, in which there were 3 sales last year. How does that generalize to each and every property? So that's one area. The second thing I had raised had to do with the difference between how the assessments between town and village are, I guess I want to say, rectified as to the fact that town residents pay a tax, or village residents pay a tax that town residents don't because of the operation of the village, and how that's equalized. And I really would like to hear an explanation about that. And then the third thing had to do with the difference between the appraisals that people get often when they're getting refinancing versus assessments. And when a property owner takes in the appraisal, why that isn't recognized as a legitimate bona fide value for the property, and the town planning, the assessment, find some other value for it. Perhaps lowering the assessment, but usually not equaling what the appraisal is. So those 3 things I'd ask you to address to him. I have more. I want to recognize, and since you're doing proclamations, it's in the form of a proclamation, but I also would like to recognize I've been sitting here for about a year now, watching you closely. I want to thank particularly Supervisor Deere, who, as many of you know, has been working with the neighborhood I represent, Changing Seasons and Kinsella Quarries. We're not at an end line yet, but the process has moved along in no small part because of his facilitation. And I think he's deserving of that recognition. Third, I would add to the recognition of Councilor Denton. I have a short, memorable quote. There are 2 times in your lives when people say nice things about you. One is when you retire, the other is when you die, and you're not there for half of them. You are entirely deserving, from what I've observed in the time I've been here, for the recognition you've gotten from your colleagues on the board. Congratulations. Finally, in the spirit of the season, I have a poem. It's the one that accompanied my Christmas letter. Plagiarism is allowed. 'Twas the week before Christmas when I started to write my new Christmas letter in fading daylight. Black Friday had gone without too much notice, and soon there would come the cold winter's solstice. It will not be long till we hear Santa's sleigh, so I better start writing all the things I should say. How can I report all events of last year? I guess I'll just have to get up off my rear. Thank you.
Next up, we have Carrie Baker to talk about Walker and Bikers Safety.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Baker. I live at 711 South Manlius Street. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight about an issue that I am very concerned about. I want to bring attention to the safety concerns that I have regarding children walking and biking to and from school at Fayetteville Elementary and at Wellwood Middle School. I emailed the town supervisor, Village of Fayetteville mayor, police department principals at Fayetteville, Wellwood, NIC, and superintendent shortly before Thanksgiving. And after observing and hearing from other parents about several dangerous incidents involving the walkers. Since my initial email, I have spoken to all 3 school principals as well as Superintendent Tice, the Manlius Police Department, Town Councilor Creasel, Mayor Olson, the Fayetteville Elementary SRO officer, and Village of Fayetteville DPW have came to do a site visit and speak to me about my concerns in person. The only person that I've not yet been able to speak with is Supervisor Deere. It's imperative for the town, the village, the school district, and the state to work together to resolve the safety issue, which is why I'm here tonight. Our children's safety needs to be a priority in our community. Children walking and biking to and from school is part of what makes living in a suburban town appealing. Drivers on FM Road in Sheffield are not paying any attention to the walkers and the bikers and are flying through the school zone on a regular basis. The crossing guard at FM Road is constantly putting herself in danger while she attempts to bring drivers' attention to the children crossing. This is arguably the most used crosswalk by our children and yet possibly the most dangerous in our community. Drivers on Sheffield are coming off FM Road fast and are blocking the crosswalk while they make their turn. I walk my son to school each day and frequently observe cars not paying any attention to us as we cross the road. I have several ideas on ways that we can make walking to school safer. One, enforce the 20-mile-per-hour school zone so that drivers are more accountable. Two, we must install crosswalk lights on FM Road crosswalk for increased visibility when the children are crossing. Three, we need to change the top of Sheffield from a sweep to a T, which was explained to me. I did print a photo to demonstrate because it's a little confusing. To decrease the speed while turning onto Sheffield from FM Road. Crosswalk lines should be painted on Sheffield to increase the visual awareness of that crosswalk. Trees need to be cut down and signs moved on FM Road to help driver visibility when turning off of Sheffield and onto FM Road. And FM and IC families need to be reminded to follow traffic laws and to be more aware of the walkers and bikers. Since my initial email and subsequent conversations, the mayor has removed some of the signs that are blocking the line of sight from Sheffield and onto FM. He let me know that he plans to have the 2 trees taken down in the corner of Sheffield and FM that are part of the village. Sure, these 2. He also plans to change the entrance from FM Road to Sheffield, weather permitting, and likely not till spring, to slow the traffic coming onto Sheffield. He mentioned that lining Sheffield would only be possible if ADA plates could be installed on either side of the crosswalk. One side of Sheffield is the village, but however, the other side is the town, which makes the partnership imperative to achieve this goal. All 3 school principals have sent emails to the entire student body of their respective schools, reminding them to slow down and look out for walkers. I am thrilled with the action that has been taken so far, but more needs to be done. FM Road is a state road, and in order to have lights installed, it will take a cooperative effort on the part of the village, town, and school district. What would the next steps be for the town so we can ensure walker safety? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, so, Carrie, I have spoken with, Carrie on this issue, and, we talked about a couple different solutions, including an intermunicipal school agreement. I shared with her Counselor Denton, I know he's saying Counselor Denton, her sidewalk program and the different opportunities for that. And we discussed even possibly going as far as annexing that property into the village so that there was one stakeholder removed from the equation, it would just be the village. But that, I understand that that's extremely expensive and complicated, so perhaps an intermunicipal agreement would be easier. But my children go to Wellwood, and Carrie's right, people, like, the cops can't sit there all the time. And I've been in cars with drivers, so I'm like, you're in a school zone. I go to 19, but people fly through there, and like the cops aren't sitting there all the time. So it is an issue, and when I was at Wellwood, a friend of mine got hit crossing. He was a walker from Sheffield, and he got hit. So it is an issue, and we are working together on a solution. Is that for me?
No.
But I think that that there are potential solutions. So Rob, I'm glad that you're here tonight, so you were able to hear what Carrie's concerns are. Do you have any preliminary thoughts on what we potentially might do?
You obviously have the first issue is Route 257 is a state controlled road, so they would have to actually determine, do a traffic study. They're gonna be the ones that determine whether there should be lights at that crosswalk. And then the new maintenance program, village maintenances, state maintenance, those things come into play. Of course, obviously, there is no crosswalk at Sheffield Lane at this point. There's no line crosswalk there. Because what they're gonna tell you is that it doesn't go to anywhere, kind of like on this road. Where is it going? Where is it gonna continue to? So you can't just drop it to a dead end, basically.
Because there's no sidewalk on the other side.
Right, because there's no side, there's no place for them to go other than lawn. You know what I mean? So that's gonna be a concern as far as a crosswalk, not Sheffield Lane.
It sounds
So-
like you're asking about the lights though at the.
So the lights, I think we should
At the
talk about
FM,
is down
yeah.
at the FM,
That's the FM
which
road.
is something
That's
that the
the
state would have to determine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We would have to probably petition the state to look at that do will determine whether they qualify for loading signage.
No, that sidewalk is in the village. It's on a state road in the village, so there's a village
Right.
petition.
So the village would also probably petition.
Right.
So we could-
I would do a combination for petition to the state. I've got some numbers, I'll get with John, and we can talk to the resident engineer, state, so we can come out, take a look and get the ball rolling based on that.
Okay, Rob, related to that, I heard they're talking about the sweep versus the T, so could you speak to that?
Yeah, so Sheffield Lane, the buses go down Sheffield Lane, and I think the city bus still goes down through there at times too, so the issue
It might
now
turn,
is
right?
the turn radius there.
Yeah.
So you really can't narrow it up too much because of the bigger vehicles that actually make the turn off and get from road, i.e. buses that go down into there. So again, that intersection, technically a state intersection, they own that a certain distance of that intersection. So it would have to be something they would determine. I'm not so sure the village has the right to just narrow those intersections
Right.
up without having something from the state allowing them to work within the way. Yeah,
So it sounds like kind of moving forward, we'll talk to the engineer.
yeah, I think we'll get a
Get
little.
to take a look at it.
One more thing, we had in 2007 or 2009, there was the 2007, there's a, if you haven't already looked at it, there's what we can review today. There's a 2007 SMTC report that was a study to see the possibility of putting a sidewalk in along FM Road.
Yeah.
And that has all kinds of information within it that includes at that point in time, their safety and traffic sort of findings. So it would be
Okay.
really helpful to appeal to the state, given understanding that, but also there are so many folks who are interested in a sidewalk.
Yeah. And that would be the next, maybe pipe dream, but I guess you guys have made it happen recently is
Well,
to,
we have it.
is to do a sidewalk.
Very slowly, we're starting to build support. So we didn't know enough support to start building
Sure.
sidewalks in town, because someone has to pay for it.
Mhm.
And so right now we are, if anybody who's interested can organize their neighborhood, and we'll help you to kind of create a sidewalk district. And so the district would include all the residents that would technically benefit from that sidewalk, and then they would be the ones who would pay for it now. We would not do that alone, we would be applying for grants to reduce that cost as much as possible. I've been doing some different figures and stuff, and I think our goal would be to see if a project would be feasible, it wouldn't be any more than like $50 a year. Or then, at the same time, that would be for residential, and then it's vary for commercial. So those are the things we've been playing with. We are working on a new road right now to collect petition signatures to get support. Anyone can sign up that form, but, again, in order to count towards the neighborhood sidewalk program, it's be in that district. We could do the same thing for FM Road. What's really nice about FM Road is it has that study. And then because it's a state road, I think, like, if we're willing to build sidewalks and do that project, we have to ask the state for permission.
Yeah, you'd have to petition the state.
Yeah.
To work within the right of way, place that in the right of way, I'm sure they would have, as far as maintenance and all that has to be determined.
The reason that didn't move forward before 2007 is that there were a number of people along the south side of the road, whichever side is the Wellwood side, that side of the road who would not support it and actually threatened to sue the town.
Yeah, they showed up here with lawyers.
So they likely, a number of them do not live in the road anymore. And if you're hearing this though, and you want to get ready and get your lawyer ready, that's fine too, but the study said that that tiny piece of land, the edge of Wellwood, where the utility pole is, would need to be deeded to the town, and that they wouldn't be disturbing that much, that side of the road is where the sidewalk would be most
Right.
possible.
Yeah.
So that would be in front of your house, not in front of your house, across from your
The
house.
opposite, yeah.
And I have wondered, since that has come out, is there a best practice around a protected lane versus, or some sort of protected lane, so it's good
Yeah.
for cyclists
Sure.
too, and runners and everybody else versus sidewalk. So we have, these updated
Well, and it's
ideas.
actually this year's SMT.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's not that the SMT study that's greater vehicle area, how far does that go down at that road?
It goes all the way in.
So remember I mentioned the SMTC, so they are doing a study in their next cycle of that road.
Perfect.
So it's, it would be great to sort of have
Right,
neighbors
right,
organize.
because even if you widened and had it be a safer walk, I mean, it is heavily walked.
Oh,
and
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
Well, we all know
like-
how much more we use it for
Right.
families and
Right.
to just grab milk or do whatever.
Right.
If it was a safer,
So
so.
I'm
Yeah.
participating in this SMTC, the updated study of this route, so, but I also want to acknowledge, Ms. Baker, that your, inclusion of the school districts, like, we're talking about sort of long-term things, you know,
Right.
sidewalk program and things, but in the interim, I raised my son in a neighborhood adjacent there, we were pedestrians, Thomas Lake was east of that road, and you rightly acknowledged that many of the problematic drivers are parents.
Oh, yes,
So
Yeah.
keeping that communication open with the student body and
Sure.
staff at schools, something you're gonna wanna keep doing, and I really
Right.
appreciate you doing that. It's very effective while we work on these other measures.
yeah, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Come again.
And, Mr. Benson, did you have anything to share? That wraps up. Well, is there anyone else here showing hands who'd like to speak up podium? Anybody online? Got a hand up? Yeah.
Well, Mr. Benson?
So can you hear me?
Got you 5 minutes on the clock.
Okay. I need a clock, as you know. Thanks for hearing me speak. Tom Bassett, retired real estate lawyer, longtime town resident. I would like to just refer to a number of town board accomplishments over the course of 2023. One being the development of and approval of the comprehensive plan, the installation, the overcoming of the resistance to the installation of a solar farm facility on the closed town landfill, and the development of a community solar relationship to benefit town residents, a development of the PUD zoning classification, which allows some flexibility as far as future development, such as the Garden Park project. You're going to talk about the amended police intermunicipal agreement. I've read that agreement. It clarifies a whole lot of issues that existed over a long period of time. Seems to be the result of negotiation between the three villages and the town. And I think that will be a good thing when that agreement is approved. I approve. I was glad that the ward system referendum was successfully voted down, and I also am happy that a resident of the territory north of the canal has been recruited and elected to the town board, Mike Nessie. That's a good thing. The sustainable Manlius environmental initiatives have been good. I continue to appreciate the fact that this open podium exists, that the meetings are on Zoom, such as occurring now, the transparency efforts and the citizen input initiatives, all good. As far as progress is concerned, the supervisor mentioned at some point in the past that he wanted to move the town forward and not backward. A very good desire, because inertia and adherence to the status quo often results in not successfully in dealing with change and newer evolving challenges that occur. So intelligent adaptation to such changes is desirable. Rigid adherence to the status quo is not desirable. As far as development is concerned, it's inevitable. I had an encounter, believe it or not, in the men's locker room at Elevate recently with a longtime commercial real estate developer who I last played basketball with as one of the Mott Road Maulers when we had elementary school children. Anyway, he's a commercial developer. His attitude is he'll work with the town, any municipality, in good faith to make a project better. If the requests for changes are reasonable and realistic, he'll implement them. And that's the impression I have with respect to the approach that the town board is taking in new projects, such as the Garden Park project. NIMBY opposition is inevitable because neighbors often don't want changes in their environments. But I think you've demonstrated good faith listening to opposition, for example, in the Garden Park project, and that I think you induced the developer to modify the district plan in ways that are beneficial to the town and an improvement over the original proposal. So that's good that was approved. You were willing to take the political risk of not just capitulating to neighborhood opposition. And I think that was beneficial to the town as a whole, town residents as a whole. Fortunately for you, it is not a situation like existed when the Northeast Medical Project was proposed years ago, when a huge number of local opponents opposed that project, and it resulted in the defeat for re-election of former supervisor Republican Dick Lowenberg. That is not going to happen here. Anyway, I do want to recognize you for your service, including Elaine Denton, who has been acknowledged, because your efforts and your sacrifice are truly appreciated. Finally, I showed up at a meeting when former counselor John Leffler attended his last meeting. And he couldn't understand why I was there. As you may know, I've mentioned in the past, we have these dueling long signs. He lives across the street from me. And I said, John, I appreciate your service. You didn't have to do this. You don't get paid enough for this. And he was incredulous. But again, I appreciate the service of all of you. And good luck in 2024. We will all need it for obvious reasons. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So anyone else from the podium? Okay, so we'll move right on. We have received the historian's report this year, the Pop Fremont. It's available on the website through the agenda. I'm sure we'll get it somewhere else on the website for posterity.
There's a town history page
Well, it's gonna go right there.
under community. That's where it will be if you want to.
Fantastic. It really, it's 2 pages long, really sheds some light on a usually unrecognized or overlooked part of town. Some really interesting background, some history there, and I'm excited to check some stats that are in there, because it does say that Fremont is larger than any of the individual 3 villages. So that really is saying something. And I know, as I've gotten to know Fremont, campaigning and talking with folks there, it really is, it's a fantastic part of town. I know, especially too, with some incoming counselor from the area, we're hopeful to keep moving forward there and make sure the residents have some access. So we're gonna accept that. We're gonna put that on our website, and I implore everybody to take a read. It's very interesting. And thank you to the town historian. Next up, we have the intermunicipal police services agreement. So this is something we've been working on for the better part of this year. And so we are at a position now where we had a special meeting, I wanna say right at the end of October, where we, after the villages had adopted their preferred versions, we went and adopted our preferred version, with the understanding that the conversation would continue. We were very pleased to receive some feedback from the villages. They had a very small change, just 1 sentence to one of the sections about the hiring of the chief of police. As we said at that meeting, the goal was to reach an agreement by the end of the year, if not continue observing that agreement through into the new year, assuming that this could be negotiation happening. Happy to say that it took a lot less time than we expected. And the agreement that we're looking at today that is on the agenda, I believe was already adopted by all 3 villages. So I will look for a motion.
Do you mind reading the sentence that's new?
Oh, sure.
I'll let you look for that too. I'd like to mention that our police committee, which is a key attribute of this municipal agreement, it's a mechanism for the villages to weigh in on important matters as they pertain to the management and function of town Manlius Police Department. And point number 2, which speaks directly to sort of the composition and function of the police committee, has in its final sentence that each year at its January meeting, excuse me, Tom. It's each year at its January meeting, the committee shall elect a chairperson to serve a 1-year term. We did not have a scheduled meeting. Town clerk Weber called that today during our meeting, so we have scheduled our January quote unquote organizational meeting for the newly convened police committee under the newly administered intermunicipal agreements. Very exciting times that we've gotten ourselves to this point. So January 24th at 5 p.m. we will be activating this first reconvening committee.
So it is under section 3, subsection D, the whole section, the latter sentence being the new addition. As it relates to the responsibilities of the police committee, to provide input and recommendations to the town board regarding employing and discharging the chief of police of the police department in accordance with law and as the committee members deem necessary. And the added sentence is the town agrees that it will review the committee's input and recommendation before hiring any new chief of police.
That's great. Oh, thank you very much.
With that said,
Oh, I got the motion, sorry. And so I'd like to make a motion to approve the amended and restated intermunicipal police agreement with the villages of Manlius, Fayetteville, and Manoa as presented.
Second.
And authorize the supervisor to sign that.
so moved. Second.
Any questions, any further comments on that? Great. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, so we do have a scheduled public hearing. This is for local law we took a look at our last meeting, amending chapter 34 of the town code entitled Tree Commission and replacing it with an updated tree code. My understanding is this is very much responding to the changing requirements of Tree City USA. And really, we took something that was pretty, we have a tree commission, was what the code was, and now it really outlines the goals of the trees commission, how it governs itself and things like that. So, we did hear today that there were some changes that were needed to this current version, but we do have a public hearing scheduled, so I think the goal is, we'll open the public hearing, if there's any comments, we'll take that, and then we will hold it open until our January 10th meeting, where we're ideally we'll present the changes and then, be able to move forward, with adoption and also hearing comments.
So those changes that heard from, where did you hear the changes from?
So
So I think Stephanie was talking about the expanded, I have since heard from her, and she was talking about the expanded, language around they're cutting on private property, which we discussed in the last meeting.
this is not part of this.
Exactly. So in that case, I think we are able to actually speak to the existing agreement that we have and be able to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
And then close it and then vote.
Okay,
I'm so sorry that communication doesn't happen.
are you 100% certain?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic, well, with that,
We do have the amended law, but we're gonna do this and then amend it very shortly thereafter.
Exactly. We're
I have-
taking it up.
I have input on the amendment.
Great.
Which we haven't seen.
We haven't seen.
Thank you.
Need to waive the reading, the public, waive the reading of public.
I'll second.
There.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay.
And I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay. Anybody here to make a comment on the proposed amendment to chapter 34 of the Tree Code?
No, and I can just say that the existing, as you said, the first, where we stand now is that it just says we have a tree commission. But for example, detailing that we actually have a management plan and how we work at the department. And this is all detailed in this in a way that just works with expanded in compliance with Tree City USA's standards. And we believe that we're also at a stage in January of the new year to go back to this law. We're trying to be in compliance by the end of 2023 with the Tree City USA standards, which is the rationale for voting on this version of it. But we'd like to open it up again and amend the law in the new year to expand or clear cutting on private land in accordance with what is part of what regular site plan review would dictate for from the planning board. The planning board is guiding us, on that too.
That's timely, and we had our watershed committee meeting last night, and so trees as a function of healthy watershed management are of keen interests to that group, so this is a very timely discussion and amendment to make.
So seeing no public comments, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
We'll close the public hearing on amending chapter 34 of the town code entitled tree commission and replacing it with updated tree.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
May I make a motion to approve local law 2023, drafting the local amendment to local law chapter 33, our tree code?
Chapter 34.
34.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries. And so the understanding is sometime in the new year, we'll sit down and talk about further amendments to that.
Yeah, we have the amendment updates, but we have not worked with the watershed stewards. There's some sustainable Manlius folks, Alice Matheson. We really want to work with the planning board a little bit more closely for that first conversation. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have presented something we discussed last time. I believe we re-up our intermunicipal agreement with Fayetteville for the deer management program. And now we have in front of us the amended deer management plan.
I'd like to speak to that from Mr. Supervisor. So this is a very wonderful example of a well-functioning intermunicipal agreement between the town and the village to manage a broad public health issue. But what I'm most eager to talk about is that this committee, the Fayetteville, Village of Fayetteville really kind of runs this committee. We have partnered with them. And this was a perfect example of different interests coming together to actually come to consensus rather than just a vote. So that there were some people, so let me backtrack for a second, because what is different about this plan? The reason we have to approve this tonight is that there is a significant change to it to include culling, antler, as well as antlerless deer. And so that was of some concern to recreational hunters and sportsmen for a variety of reasons, and as well as the original progenitors of the plan for the village of Fayetteville had some misgivings about changing the plan at all and seemingly backtracking on what they had come before the public with, several years ago. And so rather than just taking a vote, the committee and trustee Kinsella from the village was very adamant about this, and I applaud him for that, was to instead have a fairly lengthy and robust discussion about what the concerns are. And what we came to was reorienting our attention to what is the purpose of the deer management plan in the first place. It is for a public health concern that all of us, hunters, non-hunters, sportsmen, uninvolved people are impacted by. And so at the end of this many-week process, we came to an actual consensus where I would like to publicly acknowledge, whether it's perceived or actual, we have individuals, sportsmen who are making a sacrifice here for the interests of the greater public good, and I, for one, applaud that. And so we are here today with a functioning intermunicipal agreement and a functioning plan to execute a deer calling program. So thanks to everybody who's involved, and with that, I submit it to our vote.
And I ask a couple questions before we go into it. So I just want to tell you that Fayetteville approved both Amy's agreement and this plan.
So, William, just a couple questions. It mentions that reducing the tick population, that numerous studies have shown that it has reduced the tick population. What are those studies?
So there's tick tracks that happen. I don't have actual counts, the data for you here today. So there's a lot of discussion on that came up around, well, if we're not seeing huge spikes in this type of problem, why should we keep doing this? And the reason being, the indicators aren't actually how many deer we're seeing, the number is 8 per square mile is the target you're shooting for. But in fact, what is the carrying capacity of the habitat, and what is a healthy number, and what should you be seeing? And so if we're seeing numbers closer to what we should be seeing, that's evidence that the program is working and it should continue, not that it's not necessary.
So it mentions that, so there's the phases of the plan. And I apologize for not asking you these questions earlier, but I ran out of time today, but it starts with culling, it's like the step one. And then after managed culling, then it would move to like another maintenance phase. What would that include?
Well, what we've added this year is polling public for actual anecdotal information about how it's going.
Because we do get reports of people saying the deer are eating my shrubs.
Right. And oddly enough, I don't cast shade on anyone who came before, but I was surprised to find that information was not being collected previously. And so we have 1 year of public input, so the subsequent years will have something to compare to.
We'll also work along with the tick drags and the other studies that are being done. It's.
And also the track accidents.
Yeah.
Those are the track elements.
And we're seeing that those have
The
decreased.
deer accidents.
We're not zero, but they're decreasing.
That was the first bit of information when you started, that you requested, I remember, right? You wanted to know the traffic and.
Yep.
and the accident at Bell.
Yeah, and interestingly, Assembly Member Hunter's bill is passed. So it doesn't impact us here in our municipality, but it's a good indicator of a well-managed deer program that's gaining traction
Statewide.
statewide, which is one of our recommendations.
And, so is there when discussing with the committee, are there other options besides culling that are considered or discussed? Like there's so many different, I'm not an expert in deer management, but I've been doing some research and I've read several articles this week that mention like all these different ways to naturally control the deer population, like all of their natural predators as suburban communities continue to grow. I think that's what's exacerbated this problem, or perhaps even caused this problem. So are there other natural environment conservation efforts or opportunities to control the deer population that use things that aren't guns or bow and arrow?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I mean, we're not introducing coyotes or, predators into suburbia. So these are the tools that we have for now.
They can do, and sterilization and all that stuff is not something that has ever been successful, and I think it's considered at the beginning of the program
The
too.
program sits before us is the product of some years of evaluation by USDA over what would work in these conditions. And like I said, sterilization was not a functional option, and there's a cost factor, so this is one of the most cost efficient ways to implement a management plan.
And results in food going.
That is a cool aspect too. Yeah.
But it probably makes sense for us to understand from the DEC or USDA or from the program where deer are, and if it doesn't include this, a way to where deer are living now and where our populations are almost on a map, if we can get anything, because that's, I think, relevant to development projects as they come up, to know which areas are going to be disturbed.
Yeah.
We're pressured.
So it's interesting, there is little anecdotal perspective on that when you talk to DC folks, and who have been doing this for some years, but there's not actually like a produced report or a map.
Yeah.
But, we in the town are now collecting anecdotal information from our residents, and we can assemble geographic information from that, and maybe in the next few years, there will be an update and produce something useful.
I'm sorry to take us in this direction, but I will say, as I'm remembering it, I know that our drone program allows us to highlight what body temperatures we're looking at. So if we do the body temp, so if we take pictures at different stages and do, maybe it would be a full project for someone, like a college student or something, to be able to map it over time where deer are and take pictures. We can see where they are. We can just plug in, body temperature, blah, 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 and then it'll show up.
Well, I'm also just delighted that we were able to introduce, we were able to propose a number of residents volunteer or submitted interest in being included, because that was one of the original recommendations. We need more sites, we need more colony sites. And there are not a lot that are feasible given the restrictions and setbacks that we can do with the program. And, we have, I don't know, maybe 33, I think, folks who sort of submitted an interest. Of those, most were not at all feasible. And there are 2 properties that may be feasible. So that's 2 more than last year.
One of the things that I read was that the deer ticks can, they don't just, of course, they don't just go on deer, like they can go on
Mice.
any mammal, I had several on my family members and pets earlier this year, so, even with deer culling, they can simply go to another animal, so I'd be curious to see if we actually had a reduction in the numbers of ticks, because it references like all these studies that have shown, but it doesn't mention which studies. And then other research I read showed that deer populations can actually increase when you introduce deer culling, because they will start to reproduce more quickly, to like overcompensate for like the herd being dwindled or herd dwindling. So I don't like know how to control a deer population, I just had concerns about this process.
It sounds like the actually, to watch for the trends.
Sounds like you're trying to get on the deer committee. I am. I have made my desires to be organizational meeting known.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, of course.
Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the amended deer management plan as presented in this report.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, we have an agreement for outside service connection at 8303 East Seneca Turnpike. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The town was contacted by Paula Ellen, who's here, on behalf of her mother, Barbara Emmons, who is also here. Barbara's well at her property on Seneca Turnpike had collapsed, so they don't obviously, so there's no public water hooked up there. Paula contacted the town, inquiring about the process to hook up to public water, because the main is directly across the street from the house, so it's a little bit different than some of our other connections. Yes. And Paula had been working with Aqua, they had some options, and then I kind of got involved, and we are looking at this draft outside connection, which would be a little bit easier than forming a district for one home. And I worked with Attorney Patesky on the draft, and he's been working with Aqua. We're hoping that there will be an approval from Aqua for him soon on this. At this point, if the town is agreeable to this, the town could approve it, subject to Aqua's approval. I don't know if Paula has any.
I'm just curious to know if they're close to approving it or if they have made any comments.
So I have been in discussions about what, frankly, been thrilled with doing outside user agreements, and they have done them in the past.
Right.
But they're trying to get away from them. I explained the situation here and how close it was to this property. And they're willing to consider it, so they're reviewing it and then waiting to hear from their attorney to sign off on it. But we've had productive conversations.
Oh, good, because my attorney tried to explain it to me, and he's fully aware of
Who's your attorney?
Dirk Lumel. He's fully aware of these and he's aware of the fact that Aqua hates them, and they just don't want to.
They don't, we have done this in the past. So this would not be unusual for us to do, but we can certainly move forward, and then we'll continue to work with that one.
Well, I think the biggest thing here is, what I was trying to understand, this is what our agenda meeting. The way that I thought about this is like, a plan in lieu of water. Like this is Not something they like to do, not something they often do, but because of these specific circumstances, and we have understood the process of it creating a water district, which is what would the other option be. We know that that is an arduous and expensive process that takes time. And so I would suggest to the board that we do approve this, obviously waiting for Aqua's approval, because I think it is the most reasonable way.
We need to send a letter of support in addition.
Well, the thing that Aqua asked to be included in this, where something was that we make it clear that if anybody else on the street wanted to water, we would have to extend that.
Understanding though that this would do significant amount of that work.
So that's been included in this. And obviously the costs associated with this connection will be borne by the resident, so. And we're also incorporating all of those terms and conditions of the lease we now have for the facility water district into this agreement.
I just had a question in the second to last whereas paragraph, you have the town owner and the applicant. Who's the applicant? Because that's not defined. You have them defined as the owner.
It should be the town, the owner, and
So as an amendment, we'll get that.
Okay, so that should say the,
town, the owner, and aqua. Those are the three parties to this agreement.
so it should be the owner, the contract between the owner and the town and the applicant and the owner shall be charged for the water.
When you look at the document.
Yeah, it looks like it's just replace applicant and owner.
The last whereas paragraph.
The second to last
The
whereas.
town is willing to allow the owner as owner of the property to connect with where they shall be subject to a special contract. We have the between.
See, that's where you change it.
Yeah, the applicant and it really should be the owner. Yeah. And the owner shall be charged for water service in the same degree and then with others now within the boundaries of the affected water district.
Okay.
And I just checked, that is the only two mentions of that.
Right.
So I would look for a motion to include that.
I'll move to approve the agreement as amended for an outside service connection for public water served lands of Emmons located in 8303 East Seminole Turnpike.
And just make that contingent on legal review, just in case Aqua makes some changes.
Upon legal review.
Because if there's some changes, then we can get it, yeah, we can back.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Good luck.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anne.
Emergency water is very expensive, thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda. We have before us to hire a part-time deputy town clerk, well known around the town hall. We hired our deputy clerk at the last meeting. We're very lucky to be able to have Debbie Witzel, now former deputy town clerk, to stick with us. There's a wealth of information, incredibly helpful in every aspect of not only clerk's office, but just administration. So I would look for a motion to hire her.
I would be happy to make a motion to hire Deborah Ritzel at the rate of $25 per hour, for no more than 30 hours per week, effective 2030.
Yes, second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I was just gonna say that I wanna make sure that she doesn't just retire out into the sunset after this new reviews. We gotta make sure we mark her service, at some point too, so.
Yes, but Debbie would very much like to fade it. Not a fair person, but she does watch the meetings, so
Thank you, Debbie.
yes, I will appreciate your words.
And she's moving about 5-6 feet.
Yes, yes.
She'll still be here and she'll be very helpful. I will say I'm very happy with this. Folks like Debbie that have made the transition to supervisor a lot easier. And so I'm very happy when we can keep someone for a little bit longer, especially for crossing purposes. It really does help. So this, wasn't on the agenda, but I'll talk a little bit about it. This is one from the comptroller. We have identified a key bank account, that is, I guess the scientific term is very old. And we have kind of looked and tried to understand exactly why it's there, how it's, what a portion of funds. But what we really need to do is to transfer that into one of our M&T accounts. And we've taken a look at it, and this is more so just a, you know, a safety thing to ask the board for a motion to transfer that money. And that'll be, something that'll enter into the general fund. We've looked and made sure that there's no issues with that, and so this is just a little bit of housekeeping on our side. We do have a motion prepared, if someone should, there are any questions?
Yeah, what's the balance? And was
It is 34,600, a little less.
It's a old capital account that we had, and it would be much easier to have that in with the other accounts, and then just close this one.
So like how the money is modified wouldn't change, it's just correct. All right, I'd like to make a motion to transfer funds from the key bank account to the town's general M&T account and close the account.
A second.
All those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, approval of minutes. Any questions on those, any concerns, any corrections? Okay, look for motion.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from 12/6/2023.
A second.
All those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then we have the approval of abstract number 24.
I'd like to make a motion to approve abstract 24 in the amount of $372,182.86.
As amended.
As meant.
All those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries. And with that, that is the conclusion of what we have prepared on the agenda. We do, need to go into executive session, to discuss the collective bargaining agreement, so I will put that one.
Make a motion to adjourn the session and go into executive session to discuss the bargaining agreement.
I'll second the motion as long as we also say happy holidays for anyone who's not gonna stick around.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody.
I've never cried so much during freaking town meeting. And that's saying something, it's pretty.
Caitlin, just because you're two favorite people in the.
I know, that's what I was just sitting here thinking, Heather, now you're number one. First ballot number 3. Now let's say you're number 2 and I'm not. And the rest of you can nobody tell you that.
Okay, so we come out of executive session.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the CSBA tentative agreement for the highway department as presented.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?